films to a pretty heavy character in TV. Do you feel it's like a natural evolution, or do you?
It's when you're younger and you do college theater or something. I remember we would do something like a Joe Wharton play, and then you'd be rehearsing the Sam Shepard play you'll do next in the day and do the play at night. So it's just being an actor, and especially the old school. Look at guys like Burgess Meredith and those kinds of careers. You know what I mean? So your job is to go all over the map, and it's not. It's a little tricky, but that's what the fun is. So
some people have said, I'm sorry, just to follow up, some people have said the process of TV is different than the process of film. That's why I asked.
I'll give you a good story on that one. So when I first auditioned for anything ever, it was a mini-series about Common Ground, which was the Pulitzer Prize-winning book about the Boston busing crisis in the mid-'70s. And so this woman, Meg Simon, who actually cast the show with Warner Brothers, discovered me in Boston. I was a theater actor, and I went into audition for this thing, and I was reading it, and I said, I don't know, man, I've done a bunch of plays. I hear stories. Am I supposed to be smaller? Like, I hear the process, and this is even talking film versus television. She goes, just act the effing scene. Right? And I was like, that kind of, if you think that way, you're thinking the wrong way. Every medium requires its own type thing. Like, I did a sitcom for years, and at first it wasn't supposed to be in front of a live audience, and they made a decision to change, and I didn't know how I felt about it. And John Lithgow said, it's a 2-act play in front of an audience. It's fantastic. It's just, you're like, okay, it's its own animal that way. And John Lithgow, to me, is kind of the king. He's, when you talk about bouncing between all the mediums, and he's an amazing guy, super great guy too.
What's your take on this character? Because he's so complicated and he's so layered, and you do a great job.
Oh, thanks. I think my take is just that, like most people. The difficulty I have is that he also seems to have to carry a little bit of the burden of comedic relief, and so it's just finding that balance of when it's real serious, when it's dark, when it's hard, when it's kind of goofy, and so it was. I had done comedies in the past, and you're kind of living fully in the sunshine of that side of the street. And then I went to Sons of Anarchy and Vikings and Copper and stuff. And so then it was comfortable because you know exactly it's dark. And so I was like, whoa, this is a little tricky to bounce back and forth, almost arbitrarily. So
and do you see him as corrupt, or do you see him as just?
I think a lot of people are corrupt. I mean, I think. I think if I have friends who work in, over the course of your career, luckily you get to meet people who work in law enforcement. You meet criminals. You meet people in the military, and they're like, it wasn't cool, but we had to do kind of a deal with this warlord to get through that. It's like that's the world. And if you want to think that it's, I'm sure a lot of young idealistic people have marched into places like Washington D.C. and into a police department and been like, well, I know what the culture is, but I'm going to change it. And you're like, and it's not that everybody's corrupt either. There's just gradations of some things you let slide, and some things, there's big T truth and small T truth, and
he knows how it works.
I think he does. I think at the end when you catch him, he really just wants to get to the finish line. He may want to stash some money on the side, legally or not, and he wants to get to his pension. And then Jim Gordon comes in, and he's seen 50 of these guys, except they've never been Jim Gordon. They've never had the kind of moral fiber of this guy, and it reawakens in Bullock the thing that, Jim Gordon's such a strong character that it changes Harvey. It reminds him of who he used to be, I think.
What's the appeal of and I haven't just played in police shows, but you seem to have played in quite a few. Obviously you have Life and you've got this. I mean, what's the appeal for you as an actor? Or is it just a different role?
I would say it's just a different role, because trying to stay as flexible as possible, because I have respect for all roles and professions, but there's something so iconic. I just came off, when I did the pilot for Gotham, I was doing what I thought was a really thrilling run on Law and Order SVU, which I loved a lot. And to be able to play, there's something so iconic about the New York detective.
Of course.
There's this. London wouldn't be any big city, but there's a million amazing stories happening every night, every day. There's stuff going on here, and these guys get to beeline to the strangest, darkest part of the human condition, and I think there's something fascinating about it.
Will we get to see the story behind why Christmas Allen is no longer with Gotham?
I think we get to see. We haven't gotten to it. We haven't gotten to it yet, but we get more backstory on Montoya and Allen and the MCU. And hopefully, what's nice too is that I think that the show is starting to breathe more into the worlds of Selena Kyle, Bruce Wayne, Alfred Pennyworth, which I like. Like, it was fun to have so much focus on Gordon and Bullock's partnership, but it's such a big world that I think people will be excited to start seeing it breathe and open up a little bit.
Thanks very
Were you
much.
a fan of the
Thanks very
show?
much.
I wasn't a huge fan growing up. I wasn't a huge fan growing up, but I since I started working in, especially when I started doing what I did, Blade in '97 and stuff, I got into comics partially just to kind of understand the world I was representing so much. So I have for the last 20 years.